And I think that's all I have to do, right?
Look at there.
I don't see where I'm live. Oh, here we go. Go live. There we go. One more button to push. There you go. Now I'm gonna mute that. There we go. So let's go. Rolling. 1, 2, 3. Hello, hello. November 29th. It is almost Christmas time. Thanksgiving was great. I see that the weather is getting colder everywhere. It's only 61 degrees in Austin. It's nice. We'll see how many people join today. Probably not many. We have a great guest. But before we get rolling, I wonder if our own John Sibley Butler has that guitar handy, which he does. And let's see what he got for us today.
Forgiving you is easy, but forgetting seems to take the longest time. Just keep thinking, and your memory is forever on my mind. You know I'll always love you, and I can't forget the days when you were mine. But forgiving you is easy, but forgetting seems to take the longest time. The years have passed so quickly, and once again fate steals a young man's dreams of all the golden years and growing old together, you and me. You said you loved another, said there was another on your mind. Giving you is easy, but forgetting seems to take the longest time.
All right. Thank you, Johnny.
How are you doing?
How are you doing, sir?
I am just doing fine. I'm very busy with my own work. I'm trying to finish a book. I actually have 2 books that I'm working on. I'm trying to finish those. I'm trying to keep up with all of the economic stuff in the world, where people saying that as an empire, quote unquote, we are moving downward in America, and our biggest problem in America is China, and not all of these other issues that we are dealing with. If we turn on TikTok, that is not American anymore. If we look at the movement of the gross national product, you look at what they have done, and if you look at a lot of stuff, then maybe we're on a decline in an intellectual point of view. So I've been talking to a lot of people about that. And then, of course, another big issue, of course, is election. It looks like it's going to be very, very interesting with all of the polls that's coming out and how people are thinking about America. For the first time, we might have somebody that's running for president who might be on his way to incarceration. So we're looking at a lot of interesting kinds of stuff there. And then there's a turbulence that's in the universities with the Palestinian-Israeli conflict there. And I think, as I like to say here, that we have failed in assimilation. Andreas, we could have different races, but we can't have different cultures. The culture must be
Right.
assimilation is when you adopt the culture, right, of the country. So my culture might be, I don't know, might be Creole, gumbo, crawfish, etouffee. That's my culture, being a Southern Louisiana guy, but still American, right? And I think that somebody has to say that if you're an American, then we don't mind different races, but everybody has to have the same culture. We cannot really do like Europe is doing and have so many different cultures that we're always in conflict. So it is not diversity of cultures that's held us together. It is the sameness of a major core culture that has held us together. And so this sameness is, the American tradition, the English language, English laws, English laws, and those kind of things. So I think that's a big thing for the country going forward. Had a lot of discussions on electric cars lately. People they get all excited about it. I had a friend of mine who bought one, a big BMW. I mean, it really moves out. And I'm saying to myself, well, you know, if everybody plugs them in, we might have some issues. But for the first time in my lifetime, people are looking at the grid from a political point of view for the first time. Otherwise, as you know, Greg, it's something that you just walk in and flip on. And then when it goes out, everybody said, what happened? Now, for the first time in the public domain, people want to know when my lights go out. People want to know what's the resiliency of the grid itself. On the employment line, then we got the thing, Andreas, where during the pandemic, the wealthy got much wealthier. And I'm not beating up on my kind of people. The wealthier got much wealthier. And we do have a problem with the economic divide in America. There's no doubt about that. When you look at what's going on now, if you look at our relationship with the Soviet Union and the Soviet Union's relationship with China, and then India coming on, and we have 38 million people in America, and the Chinese is up in the billions, and the Indians up in the billions. So that's a different kind of economic reality. So I think going forward, we have a lot of stuff to think about, especially in academia. Most people don't raise these kind of questions. But the weather is good. I'm looking forward to going and hitting some golf balls after the program, get my game back together so that I can really, really take your money.
There you go. There you go. Appreciate that. So before I switch to our guest here, just want a quick updates. So at Texas State, we just won a contract with TxDOT to basically drive the advanced air mobility journey of the state for 2 years. We're going to be spending a lot of time with subject matter experts across the state, understanding their needs, the challenges of air mobility and where it's going to go, how do these vertiports and VTOLs and drones are going to emerge everywhere, and they're going to basically take a chunk of the economy, create a new economy, primarily around emergency management and moving goods and ultimately moving people. So we're excited about that. That fits into one of our smart mobility labs, which is going to be about 25 acres for vertical mobility devices, equipment, infrastructure, and the like. And then we also just got awarded another contract from TxDOT for digital innovation. So TxDOT has decided that it wants to move from being an analog entity with primarily construction focus on roads and bridges and tunnels and things like that, and becoming a digital entity with telecommunications and power and AI and systems and interaction with the stakeholders, primarily also the users of the infrastructure that they manage, the roads and the highways, but also on the aviation side, right? And so we have a 2-year contract where we're going to drive the use cases and the R&D and the setup that will create a whole registration, certification domain, and that ties into a lab proposal that we have with 500 acres and stuff. So I'm very excited about those 2 projects. They just got awarded this week. And they have a significant impact on the power grid and the power grid of the future as it relates to transportation being electrified and being interconnected to the grid all the time. And so I wanted to share that with you guys before we go forward. So we have Greg Flay, Vice President of Data and Technology at Austin Energy. He's coming back again, and it's a good time to check with Greg about every 6 months to see how things are going. So how is it going, Greg?
It's going very well, actually. We are acquiring, better focus as a technology and data function. We spend a lot of time thinking about 3 things in particular. One is providing secure and reliable systems. So secure, we've done huge efforts over the last 2-3 years. The team has basically increased our BitSite score. I'm not sure, for folks who aren't familiar with BitSite, it's kind of like a credit report for your cybersecurity posture. So BitSite has cybersecurity ratings for maybe 200,000 entities around the world, including all of the large public power council utilities, which are basically our peer utilities across the US. And when we started the journey, we were essentially at the bottom of the barrel with regard to our cybersecurity score. And through a lot of hard work, dedication on the part of the technology team here, we are at the top. So we have the highest score among all the LPPC at this point in time. So not that everything's perfect, still, you know, cybersecurity never ends, right? But it is what basically separates, you know, useful, smart systems from boat anchors. So it's critical that we keep that in place. Another thing which, you know, is kind of unusual to be implementing in 2023, but we've never really had in place a infrastructure monitoring platform. So we're putting that in place, just, you know, kind of basic stuff. But it will allow us to basically detect when systems are beginning to have problems before they, you know, are actually down, as you would with like the smart grid and so forth, right? You want to not be relying on a customer to call in and say, "Hey, I've lost power," as the first time you learn that a feeder is dead. In the same way, we're trying to achieve that same level of smartness, basically, with regard to our, you know, infrastructure, servers, networking, and so forth. So that's helped us with the secure, reliable systems piece of it. Another piece, just again, this is internal to the utility, but a timely and effective response to requests. The organization had, you know, pockets of where our, you know, AE brethren were asking for help on something, and we weren't achieving timely and effective responses to those requests for help. We've brought that up to very high levels of performance now, so very happy about that. And then the last thing is basic projects, right? And I think that's mainly what we're going to be probably chatting about today is, you know, being able to effectively deliver technology projects, you know, on budget, on schedule, with full scope and quality. A lot of projects, as you're kind of going through, as Andres, I'm sure you're, you know, well aware, as you kind of go into the project, you think it's going to be this, and as you kind of get into it, you know, you have to start kind of shaving some things off, and along the way you have additional, you know, scope creep occur. So, you know, people will sometimes talk about a technology project as being the same as building a house. It is not the same as building a house. A house, you have plans, you can go to Home Depot, get a full bill of materials down to the nail, it's all set, you build it, you're done. Technology projects you learn about as you get into them, right? So, so we're trying to up our game on that front too. So secure, reliable systems, timely and effective response to service requests, and effective delivery of projects is really kind of those are the three areas that we've been focusing a lot within my team.
Right.
But Greg, you know, it's a great time to be alive because, you know, it's technology, so that means it's made by people. It's not on a periodic table, right? So it's, you know, so when Andres tells me that technology is a new that oil is a new petroleum, I look for it on the periodic on the table of things. But let me ask you about your job and security, especially with the data itself. As you know, as we become more data driven, and as our systems become more technologically oriented, then the whole idea of people busting in the system, you know, is really there. And given that your business moves like a glacier when it comes to those kinds of things, and given that we have open systems, right, structured systems all of Austin, right. I had a PhD student who was writing, for example, from the Israeli military, and he couldn't believe that all of the air conditionings and all of everything in America was not being guarded. So how do you combine with your traditional security, and what would data do to help you, number one, find out where you are all the time, and number two, the continuous rebirth of security so that it's not breached?
Right. Well, first off, I mean, like in the NIST cybersecurity framework, right? First thing is just identify. Like, do you even know what you've got?
Right.
If you don't know what you've got, you can't protect it. So you've got to understand that. And so that's where some of these network exploration tools, discovery tools, et cetera, help you actually understand better what you actually have. And then you can begin, trying to protect it. We make very heavy use of external, kind of threat intelligence feeds that come in every day, all day. And we match that up against kind of what we have in our environment, identify vulnerabilities, address them. We had one come in literally just yesterday, got notification at 5:39 by a.m. By 5:42 p.m. we had basically buttoned that thing up. So, again, huge kudos to the technology team here at Austin Energy. They do a great job. And they, react very fast to threats. So you got to know what you have. And then you have to have some, kind of good information given to you. Talking about data. One of the reasons why our cybersecurity profile came up from 2-3 years ago is we just began to use this bit site, which tells you not only a score, but like specifically what the issues are in cybersecurity issues are in your environment. It's like you go and you solve those, right? Now you get to a certain level with regard to cybersecurity and controls in general, you can get to a certain level with kind of a whack-a-mole approach, right? Something pops up, you knock it down. Something pops up, you knock it down. But at a certain point, and we're seeing this with BitSite, we've actually reached the kind of maximum level you can get to with your score, relying on whack-a-mole. At this point, you need to not have findings ever. And the way you prevent findings from happening ever is to implement controls, which basically prevent recurrence of some bad thing occurring in your environment. So we're looking at that. So we have to, as a city of the department, or as a department of the city of Austin, we need to, in our public meeting spaces, like we have an assembly room, we need to provide public Wi-Fi. Well, if you're a utility, you're not really a big fan of public Wi-Fi. But as a department of the city of Austin, we need to provide public Wi-Fi. So folks coming in for a utility commission meeting or something like that, they can get on Wi-Fi. Yeah. So we got dinged on our score because someone came in with their laptop from the outside, connected to our public Wi-Fi, which we own. And as far as BitSite could tell, that was an unsecured laptop existing in my environment. So we got dinged for that, even though it was someone coming in from the outside. So, along those lines, like, okay, we have to prevent this from happening again, because that was a real big hit. And it could have been potentially a pretty serious breach just because someone had outdated software on their laptop. So one of the things we're going to be putting in place is basically the technology as people are connecting in to first determine, is your stuff up to date? And if it's not up to date, we'll give you access to places to get it up to date. And that's it. So until your browser or, operating system, whatever, is where it needs to be, you won't get access. So we'll be providing public, Wi-Fi in this case, but not until you're secure.
Well, Greg, let me ask you this on the predictive science of what people call data science now.
Yeah.
And all of the data that's out there.
We used to call it statistics. Yeah.
Yeah, it's nothing but statistics, right? It's all regression toward the mean and logic. But here's the deal. Let us say that you hire me as a consultant, right? Or excuse me, after you hire me as a consultant, let's say this, and I'm not too expensive, maybe $1,000 a minute. I'm not sure. I haven't done it yet, right? And I say to you, I need to look at your database. Then I say to you, does your database interact with the weather database in America? Does your database interact with all of the buildings, which they should do as more buildings become smart? And in America, we like to put the stop sign up, after the accident happens. So on the predictive model, since you are technology and data, how are you looking at, you say that these statistics, the regression for predicting with not only your data, with data from the weather industry, data from the automobile industry, data from all kinds of places to predict what's going to happen and your needs for the grid. For example, Andreas have all the data and all the projections on what will happen if everybody bought an electric car and plugged it in. Andreas, he has all of the data on he's going to buy a big old electric truck, fill it up at Texas State and take it home and run his house on it. So do you look at that kind of data sets that's outside of your data set, especially the weather stuff, and especially maybe even the automobile stuff as they roll around the country?
Yeah, that's a good question. So obviously, you know, in our business, weather is huge. The question is not, do you have a weather data feed, is how many weather data feeds do you have? And also, do you have a meteorologist? For example, many utilities will have a meteorologist, you know, on staff, or multiple meteorologists, because weather plays such an important role, you know, in predicting load profiles. So in addition to that, we have both on the kind of accounting and finance side, as well as on our energy market operations side, people modeling that stuff all day, every day, with a variety of external feeds, including kind of models of electrification of vehicles and the weather, and even, you know, looking at a place like Austin that's had tremendous growth, looking at different growth models, trying to predict out, you know, as you pointed out, like utilities take a while to get some of these larger things done. So if you're not predicting kind of where your load is going to be growing over the next, you know, 5, 10, 15, 20 years, you might already be too late. So we've recently undergone a very extensive transmission study to understand kind of where is Austin growing, where is the, you know, kind of generation resource coming from, to handle that. Do we have the right, you know, central substations in place, all that kind of stuff. So there's a lot of modeling using a lot of data from external sources going on all the time. Every utility.
Yeah. Excellent. And as a rate payer in Austin, I used to be called a
customer.
Rate.
We don't call folks like that ratepayers. They're customers.
And by the way, I'm a smart customer now. And you know, I was telling Andreas when Tesla first came here, the head of Tesla was not interested in automobiles. We know who what his name is. He wasn't interested in becoming a utility. That is, everybody was talking the line that Tesla's management was interested in coming here and selling electric cars and putting a factory here. And my deal, Andreas, was he's interested in being a utility, being a competitive utility. Now, what does that mean? It means, of course, you would have to lend out the electricity. So I buy a Tesla. My whole automobile is now electric. My house is now electric. I have all of the emails and all of the data on all of my customers. Then all of a sudden, he would say, well, you know, we're going to take your money from Austin Energy and put it in Tesla. So he filed, Andreas helped me out. He filed when he first got here. Tesla filed for the ability
to be a retail energy provider. Yep.
To be a retail energy provider.
A rep or more like a queasy?
Yeah, so I'm saying that to ask this: how do you see the competition with the distributive stuff in energy? That is everything from energy coming back online, people reselling.
There's actually a question on the Q&A about any comments that Greg could make on ERCOT's aggregated distributed energy resources.
Yeah, that's the
pilot.
question. Yeah, that's the question.
Which goes back to the question you're asking and the status of that pilot for aggregation of the edge to the grid and all that. So anything you can share, Greg?
Not really. With regard to kind of ERCOT's plans, I couldn't really speak intelligently to that. And quite frankly, given the fairly sensitive nature of Tesla's relationship in Austin, I'm probably not going to be talking a whole lot about that either. to be
Right.
honest.
You know, this in Texas is a free country. You can say anything you want to.
You certainly can.
As a matter of fact, we're thinking about moving the Statue of Liberty from New York to the outskirts of Texas. Andreas, can we get that?
Well,
What
you know,
I'm saying is that this is an industry, as we look at a lot of industries have companies have died, they have been recreated. What we see in the future with all of the distributed stuff that's going on is that the management of industry will be very, very different. As people will have choices, just like when they had the deregulation of X industry, whether the airline industry or whatever have you, where all of the source of energy is not coming from the same place, but you must share the movement of energy, how it moves with deregulation. So I know that that's happening. I was just wondering, how do you see the growth in Austin, and what will happen with all that growth, not just Austin, around Austin? I think we'll go all the way we're already all the way to San Antonio. I think we'll be in Dallas in 10 years. And let's not leave out Columbus, you know. And so how do you see that and the impact on, how do you interact with other power sources, you know, whether it's San Marcos, whether it's Columbus, and all of those very, very independent that can provide electricity?
Yeah. So, I mean, at the end of the day, as an organization, what does Austin Energy do? We, you know, are trying to give people their electrons reliably at a good price and not kill the planet in doing so, right? That's what we do. So we tend to focus, honestly, on those things. So when we look at, for example, you know, getting electrons to folks at a reasonable price, Austin Energy, I think, has either the lowest or the second lowest average bill in Texas, and that includes the reps. So, you know, focusing on that, we don't have to be, you know, for example, earning a shareholder profit, right? So the money that we collect is being used for the utility, with a small amount being transferred back to the city to, you know, fund programs there and so forth. So all of the money essentially collected by the utility is either going to pay our pass-through costs or covering the cost of services, basically. So we don't need to make a profit. There's no profit margin that we need to incorporate into our rates, as opposed to a competitive, you know, retail electric provider like I used to work for. That's the name of the game. So I think, you know, we have a pretty good story to tell there with regard to the, you know, like I said, bill size, rates, things like that. And I think we also have a very compelling story with regard to our move toward carbon-free, sourcing for our load. So very good story there as well, which resonates with the people that we are serving, to our customer base, and to city council, who ends up being essentially our board of directors. So I mean, that's who we answer to, and I think to date we're doing a pretty good job with that.
Well, let me come in and jump on your board of directors. Now I have pages by Andreas. He said, I don't know Butler. So I am a customer, right? And I'm willing to pay a premium for my energy to stay on all the time. I'm not really interested, let us say, in the lowest rate. I have a private plane. I have houses all over America. I have a big bank account, theoretically. And in Texas, there are people like this. So I would approach Austin Energy and say the following. I am willing to pay a bonus of $50,000 a year to make sure that everything is all right. That might mean putting the hardware in my backyard, but this is the only industry that does not have you have a Volkswagen, and then you have a Rolls Royce, right? You can fly first class, or you can fly private, or you can fly. What happens to the people who are accustomed to buying for the best in your industry? And let us say that Austin has probably 300,000 of those people who are willing to pay anything. So we're not interested, they're not interested in a rate base low. We could care less how much it costs, because the plane is private, the drive is private. what kind of industry is this that would not take care of its wealthiest market?
So, John Sibley Butler, do we have a program for you?
I didn't say me. That was theoretically.
Oh no, we have a program, and it is designed, not necessarily for you. Actually, it's more for grocery stores that absolutely positively cannot lose power.
Right.
So the program is called Resilience as a Service, and essentially it involves implementation of on-site generation that can be dispatched. It's controlled out of Austin Energy. And it can be dispatched either for, kind of grid stability, grid security kinds of things, or it can be used at certain beneficial times with regard to the energy market. So it can be dispatched for grid security concerns, or it can be dispatched for, financial assistance, basically. But it's targeted at those mainly companies that are absolutely positively cannot lose power, even for a few hours at a time, because of the huge loss they take. So it's a relatively new program. I think it's only started up this year. I could be wrong, but that resilience as a service basically gives customers an option. The ones who need something like that, gives them an option to have locally sited generation in their corner of the distribution grid that can be that is kind of managed and dispatched by Austin Energy.
So yeah, like hospitals too. I mean, during the whiteout some years back, if you live by a hospital, you didn't lose the service. But what I want you to do is this, Greg. I want you to get with me, and we're going to package it.
I'm going to sign you up. I'm going to sign you up today. I'm going to let the key accounts know about John Butler.
We're going to get key accounts, and we're going to make Austin Energy. I know that Austin Energy is owned by the city of Austin. And I know that you give a lot to the city of Austin for everything that we do, and thank you for that. But this is the only industry that I know that talks about how low price things are, and don't have a sector where they're going to charge the hell out of them because they can't pay. So let's get the data.
Let me pause you there.
Okay.
And I'll share a little bit from prior life, working for a competitive retail electric provider, a CREP.
Okay.
The best customers you can have as a competitive retailer are the folks who never pay attention to their bill ever at all.
Absolutely.
Because every year you mark it up a little bit, not enough to make anybody notice,
right?
Just a little bit. And much like perhaps some of us with a few years, who may have gained, it's just a pound this year and a pound next year and a couple pounds the year after that, right? Soon you got a real problem.
Speak for yourself. Yeah.
I'm just theoretical. Asking for a friend, right?
Right.
But that is how the most loyal customers for many competitive retailers end up paying far over the market rate for the electricity that they're getting, right? Which is a commodity. They're not necessarily getting any better service, any better electrons, right? It's just, they're just paying more because their utility bill, their electric bill isn't really enough to be paying attention to. So they can be paying double, triple, for as long as it goes on, because it's just not something they're looking at. So
it's like private golf courses. Who cares?
Perhaps.
Never look at it. Yeah. Well, I say that because I do think that with the opportunity structure and entrepreneurship, seriously, that a lot of entrepreneurs, including Elon, right, are looking at an industry that's had a certain kind of business model for a long, long time. And the question is, and it's a commodity that everyone needs. The country's growing, Austin is growing, and the question is, how do you get a piece of that? We saw it in the computer industry, when it started. We saw it in the automobile industry when it started. And of course, the automobile has almost become a commodity now. And although they do have that structure of the Rolls Royce and et cetera, and et cetera. So I was just asking, in your data science, do you see a world like that where, in addition to the grocery stores, you would have customers who are paying most of the bills for the rest of people because they really could care less.
Right. So it's
I
good.
understand you can just hire me and we get it done. No problem.
Yeah.
I'm a statistician. We'll run the algorithms. We'll select if, and then Andreas' bill will go up 4 or 5 times. He wouldn't care. Right.
So this equity issue, basically, are people paying essentially their fair share for the electricity that they're consuming? Because a lot of what the utility has are in fact fixed costs, right?
Yeah.
So we have all this infrastructure in place to deliver electrons. All of that is fixed cost. So there are some pass-throughs that we pay for the energy that we need to buy off the ERCOT market that we pass along to customers. But there's a huge fixed cost, and making sure that the different segments of our customer base are essentially paying their fair share of those costs is actually something we spend a lot of time thinking about. We actually have, as our chief financial officer has presented to city council, we've actually gotten kind of out of whack over time. And all segments of our customer base are not paying essentially their fair share. Some people are overpaying and some people are underpaying. And all this has been like well documented in these council sessions. So one of the things that our finance team is basically trying to continually work toward is what they call, I think, parity, which is where all the different customer segments are basically all paying their fair share. So I think in the past, there's been a underpaying, for example, on residential side, and an overpaying on the commercial side. So to a certain extent, it has been, the burden has been shared unequally, with our commercial customers paying more than they really are, due, and the residential side paying less. So we are trying to bring that back into equilibrium, where all the different customer segments are in fact paying their fair share, basically.
And the more data you have, the more you can compare with zip codes, right?
Yep.
So the average, well, I won't say the average, the modal. They asked me, well, what's the average income of your neighborhood, Butler? Well, I can say $1 billion because Michael Dale lives right over here on the other hill, right? So he's so far off, right? Everybody now goes up to $1 billion. So I would say the molar concern, and I think that's where the data comes in. And I think that's where the data itself will allow you to do and answer those kind of questions. And I can tell you this, Greg, we could not answer those questions in the past. We were guessing. But now we've got that. Andreas, I'm sorry, I took too much time.
No, this is great. I have a ton of questions for Greg about different things. So Greg, help us understand, because there's a lot going on and a lot of people don't know how the sausage gets made. But so let's talk about systems, smart systems, AI, machine learning, deep learning, all these things. So how much of that are you guys looking at it? How much is deployed anywhere, maybe in the call center or what have you? Where do you think, where are the advantages? Where are some of these systems going to emerge and help out?
Yeah, I think we're kind of at early stages of that. I just came back in October from, Gartner's annual symposium. And I think at least half the sessions were associated with AI. It kind of harkens back to, for those of us who were doing IT back in, say, the 2003 timeframe when Sarbanes-Oxley hit, and that was a major game changer in terms of how technology departments ran. Back then, kind of nobody really understood like how the regulators didn't really understand what they had concocted. The auditors didn't know what they were doing. Companies didn't know what they were doing. Kind of, we were in that state of maturity where people were kind of figuring it out. And it feels like we're in that same state right now with regard to AI. So, it used to be, talking back to the cybersecurity aspect of it, one of the key vectors that a bad actor is going to be trying is phishing. And phishing, used to be kind of almost like comical in terms of, how badly written, these phishing attempts were. Well, now you apply generative AI to that, and you come out with a pretty good looking, pretty good sounding, phishing email, which we in turn, the cybersecurity function under me in turn copies and then uses as our own, kind of phishing tests.
Mm,
But that kind of thing is kind of a game changer. I think there's a lot of potential for, and we're looking into that is AI with regard to like call center chatbots, kind of a
mhm,
thing to give people the right information. The challenge with AI at this point is, and again, I think this is largely due to the maturity of it, is if you have situations where the accuracy of the data has to be like dead on, AI is still problematic, especially like generative AI, which is of course all the buzz these days. Is it's good for producing stuff, and it's good for producing, let's say, a phishing email. But if you're providing a customer with information, like it's got to be exactly right. And I don't think that the state of AI, generative AI anyway, right now, and chatbot
mhm,
AI is really at that state where it's equivalent to a customer service rep looking at the totality of what a
mhm,
customer's got going on, with their
mhm,
account or their premise or whatever the case might be, and give them like 100% accurate information. So,
mhm.
I think there's potential there to handle some basic stuff, but I don't think we're at the stage where we're going to be worrying about like swapping out call centers for a bunch of AI bots at this point.
Well,
Right.
let me ask this question real fast, Andreas. With
Yeah.
chatbot is a faster web service, right? It's faster Google. Will chatbots kill Google because it's just a faster Google, in my opinion? I
I
mean,
think they merged. Like Bing has AI built into it. The
yeah,
Microsoft, so as you're typing stuff in, you just go to regular Bing browser and you can type stuff in and
right,
you get your Gen AI right there. So
yeah,
yeah, I think these things are all going to merge. Kind of like, um, there's AI as most people are thinking about it, which is like this separate standalone thing. It's like, oh, let's bring some AI into it. And then there's the AI that's, to a certain extent been baked in since the
Mhm,
smart grid, like all smart systems, right?
mhm,
And, your typical advanced distribution management system. It's bringing in the data that it's getting from its, SCADA feeds, and then it's figuring out like, what does that mean? What should we do about that? Did we just have a
mhm,
failure, kick off? Should we, deploy our fault location isolation and system restoration algorithms to reconnect as many people as we can, kind of working around wherever that fault may lie?
mhm.
So
I
that,
just I,
yeah,
I just find, I'm thinking about the opportunities here of innovation, right? You're probably all aware of OpenAI's announcement of GPTs on top of Chat GPT, and the fact that anybody can create their own GPT. And to me, it's like, wow, this is fascinating. So, when you think about automating anything, right? And the fact that you can actually, as you can see here, they have, the whatever, the creative writing coach, the laundry buddy, the game time, the tech advisor. This is fascinating that you can actually leverage this tool to perhaps improve your, help desk or improve your anything inside the company, right? And it's just fascinating that all of a sudden the capabilities of how you can, you know, make the living and working experience and playing experience with technology much easier, move faster. I see that as an incredible opportunity. Utilities, deal with so many customers, right? In the case of Austin Energy, 2 million plus people that can call in any moment with whatever problem they have about their account and their building and their what have you, that whole supply chain should benefit dramatically from these advances, right?
it should. I think, kind of where one of the challenges that comes in is there's, obviously kind of these generic large language models that sit out there that things like, Chat GPT are running off of. The challenge becomes when you want to integrate that kind of large generic model with your and your organization's right
Mhm.
proprietary. information. And how do you do that, kind of securely and
Right.
sustainably and
Right.
all those things. So people have, for example, taken like a snapshot. You can get your own instance of ChatGPT, right? For example,
Mhm.
and then you kind of have that in your internal data center, and then you can,
Mhm.
combine it with things, internally. Some people are doing that in a kind of a secure way. Some people are not necessarily doing that in a secure way, but that's a big challenge, right? Because we have
Yep.
data that not only, I mean, not so much from a competitive, we do have some competitive matter, kinds of information, but just in terms of like, NERC SIP related, BCSI, things like that. So sensitive grid related information could be potentially very powerful if harnessed to certain kinds of AI, but we need to make sure that it's all being handled securely. So there's a lot of talk within the utility industry right now about kind of how to combine the benefits of AI, and especially generative AI, these kinds of models with your proprietary internal information, and do it securely, and then reap benefits from it.
Yeah, it is a new world, and I think you said it exactly right. If you look at maybe law firms, maybe people who write, maybe newspapers, and let's not
Even
forget,
professors, just putting it out there.
yeah, professors, and unless they're good looking, and then that's why you stay. But it is a new world. Anytime information is given, but as we know, the thing about AI, it is based on the past and not on the future. That is, if the imagination is not there, although people would say that the imagination can be there. So as you know better than me, everything that's produced on all of the chats is based on the data that's out there so that they could pull from. So it's not very, very futuristic. But not only, and my question is this, I think, and I might be wrong, that the movement in technology so far has made tasks much, much easier. So I just saw where, helicopters don't need pilots anymore to fly. It's been like that for a long time with fixed wing aircraft. When I go to the store, when I grew up in Louisiana, you got the person who was checking out who could do this much faster on the machine. Now it just goes beep, 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 beep. I was driving to Brenham doing Thanksgiving in my automobile. We'll slow down, take off, and go around cars. Do you get the sense that that all of the technology that we're moving in now will make it lesser for individuals to have to train because it is so dynamic? So right now, I could put you in an airplane, in a jet, and in a week can teach you to fly to Dallas. Because when you take off, you just let it go. And you don't touch it sometimes, even after it learns. So it might be able, so I could hire somebody and say, all right, do me a chat on the nature of water. Bam, and it's there. So do you think that all of the training that we've done in universities and et cetera, but perhaps with the exception of the arts, the creative people, all of that would be not unnecessary, but very, very interesting? Because, you don't have to go to college to learn the chat stuff. You don't have to go to college to learn all of this stuff. And the purpose of college has always been networking to me. So what do you think about that in terms of you hiring in the future at Austin Energy? Who do you look for? Data scientists, or who do you look for? I know there are people in statistics, so that's psychology, sociology, and economics. Because if you got those degrees in engineering, you got a lot of statistics, right? So who do you look for? Does it matter now when you go out looking for somebody to work in your shop?
It's a good question. I think, with regard to hiring, I think you're always kind of looking for two things, right? One is a skill set, and preferably an experienced skill set, although that's becoming, kind of more and more difficult. And the second is, kind of culture and demeanor and, emotional intelligence, things like that, right? So does this person know how to do the job on one hand, and can they operate effectively in this environment on the second hand? I think skill sets, especially on the tech side. I mean, I've been in the gig for 33 years, right? So there's been, huge changes basically in what occurs. It used to things that, we used to do manually with, screwdrivers and blades and leaving a bunch of blood inside of a chassis oftentimes. That we don't do that anymore, right? Now you click a few buttons and you've, spun up some more Azure resource, and you're not really, worried about the interior metal in a server necessarily. Although we still have, quite an extensive server farm here still at AE, but you've evolved into different things. I mean, if I think back to the that movie Hidden Figures about NASA, right? There were people with the job title of computer, and what did they do? They wrote, they calculated by hand numbers that we just do like on a calculator today. So that was a whole job, was just basically doing numeric calculations that people did all day, every day. Well, we don't do that anymore, right? Now we just use the phone. So I think that jobs kind of historically, since probably the beginning of time, are continually evolving. They just evolve a lot faster now. So if your primary thing was, for example, taking a set of general information and writing some copy, that's probably a problem. That's why I think the Screen Actors Guild was on strike for so long, is because they didn't want to have the writers be essentially replaced by AI, which is probably a very real concern to have. When I think about like academia, so the first half of my life was spent in academia. The second half of my life was spent in the power industry. I think we're gonna have to read a lot of what you do in college is, here's a topic, write me a paper on it, right? Or read this novel and write a paper on it. Well, I don't. We're gonna have to rethink how we do the whole like write a paper on it thing. Even if there is a kind of this this arms race of doing kind of more credibly authentic generative AI, and then building out technologies to detect when generative AI has been used, which then leads so there's this kind of arms race that I am maybe glad I'm not in academia today.
So I asked my grandson what's 80 times 80. He said, you expect for me to process it in my head? Just took out his computer,
right,
his cell phone, and told me that's where we are. Yeah.
I think you know what the decimal equivalent of 1/7 is? Not anymore.
Yeah. I think education has changed because in the old days, companies train their own engineers. They train their own people, did stuff by hand. They train their own accountants. And then beginning in about 1960s, they started going to college and universities for that training. But General Motors trained their own engineers. They trained their own managers. And they trained them in certain kind of ways, and they did absolutely wonderful. Yeah, but I think that that your industry is very interesting, and I guess we're coming to a close. And I want to ask you this question because I'm working on this right now. I'm working on all the technologies with Richard Sprindle that's been on the shelf that could help this industry. America spends billions of dollars on grid modernization. And the scientists at the private labs or university take the technology and sit it on the shelf because it is a regulated industry. So as we like to say on this program, it's an industry that's running on 1920 technology and making billions of dollars. So how do you get a new technology, let's say from behind the meter, right into the house and to distribute, you go from the big wires to the substations, and then how do you get new stuff back on the grid? How do you get new technology on the grid? It has been done so over the years. There's so much sitting on the shelf, and we just keep funding it. But because of the money they're making, and it's regulated, how do you do that? How do you do grid modernization for truth, like Andreas did back in the day? How do you do it?
Step one, hire Andreas, right? That's the solution. So I think there's probably an underestimation of the amount of innovation that's actually occurring and being deployed into the field. So there's an organization called EPRI that is basically primarily focused on research,
Yep.
but then also operationalization of that research. So they give awards every year to kind of who's done the best job at taking something that EPRI might have been developing from a research standpoint and putting it into commercial operation. So there actually is quite a bit of that, and even with regard to, like, we're putting in place a wildfire detection AI system called Pano AI that will help us, in conjunction with the Austin Fire Department, will help us to identify when there is a wildfire beginning out in some remote area, using a combination of cameras and the AI technology as well. That wasn't a thing we used to have. If we have that thing, especially, when I think about my own house, when I first moved here in Austin, it's out in Northwest Austin. It's surrounded on basically all four sides by canyon, which at the time seemed like beautiful and fantastic. I was moving from Pennsylvania at the time, and then that was 2011. So that was the year of, massive drought. And I realized I'm completely surrounded by kindling right now. Like, this whole thing could go up at any moment in time. I don't
I
think
understand. I'm in Great
moving
Hills.
to a canyon was smart. So I'm very happy personally that Austin Energy is investing in this kind of AI wildfire detection technology. I think that's hugely important. Figuring out even how to simultaneously, when we're talking about distributed energy resources, right, and a management system for that, so a DERMS, that's complicated. And it's complicated for a number of reasons. You're not only trying to solve for kind of enhanced, grid reliability, grid security, but you're also trying to optimize things from a financial perspective as well. So finding systems that can take these, all these disparate sources of data, going back to the data thing, and put it together and have smarts built into the system to kind of advise you on what you should be doing next with your DER out there, is a non-trivial problem. But everyone's trying to implement something like that right now, and so there have been some early adopters of that, but the state of that is still kind of in development to a certain extent. So I think there's actually a lot of innovation that's going on. I think what's tricky, and maybe what you're going to, is we have millions of miles of conductor out there that is still wire. And even as you replace your wooden poles with steel poles, you still have a lot of wooden poles out there, and they rot and they fall down, right? So I think that's always going to, no matter how smart the grid gets, there's always going to be kind of these the physicality to the grid that is always going to be problematic. But I think that we can deploy smart solutions, like Andres had done, and it continues to be done here at Austin Energy, to try to mitigate. You can't eliminate the risk, but you can try to mitigate, or take action when it occurs. So
I agree with you. I also
quick questions, Greg, real quick.
Yeah.
Where is the status of using drones at Austin Energy? Are you using drones for many things? What's going on there?
We have been using drones for inspection purposes for a number of years now. We're we're now at the point where we're actually replacing our initial drone fleet, and upgrading to better systems and so forth. We have one, I'm just looking up here the project list of the 215 projects that we've got going on. And you remember those days, don't you? Yeah, you do.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I did 2,500 projects in 8 years.
There we go. Exactly. So there is the main thing we have right now is around upgrade of that fleet. There might be some other drone related stuff as well that I'm just not seeing on the screen right now.
Right.
There's a lot. There's a lot going on.
What about when you think about, and I'm curious, this is a utility thing going on. The whole retirement thing continues, right? is it accelerating? Is it kind of stable? What's your take? Is that a focal point still at the utility in terms of all these people are retiring every 5 years? What are we going to do? Is that still a big deal, or is that kind of calmed down?
Oh no, it's a big deal. And obviously, you know, the huge impacts of the you know, COVID over the last few years kind of, you know, I think accelerated some of that. As organizations, including the city of Austin, begin to implement return to office policies, I think that's going to further accelerate that. That's kind of what we're planning for. So that's very real. I think that what that is exposing is, in many cases, you know, kind of thinking about things from a capability maturity model perspective, index perspective, you know, a lot at any utility, a lot of work is being accomplished through tribal knowledge, right? And so that works well as long as you have fairly stable managers in place and a fairly stable workforce. When that begins to get disrupted, you can kind of descend into anarchy, or you can kind of level up into you know, something beyond you know, ad hoc or repeatable, into something that's actually documented, you can train people on, right? Somebody comes in, kind of like I think, John, you were talking about when engineers came in to the I think it was the car companies.
The automobile industry.
Automobile industry, they were trained, right? That means that you have training in place. It's not just like OJT that you acquire through osmosis over, you know, 10 years. It's like, no, here's the training. And when you get done with the training, you'll be qualified to like do this job, right?
Just like the military. The military does that excellently.
Just like the military, they have new employees constantly, and they need to train them up to a high, and it's not left to like ad hoc if they're going to make it or not, right?
If you want to be an airplane mechanic, you go to an airplane mechanic school in the military, not some school that you brought into.
So I think that's going to force basically the leveling up of organizational maturity within utilities from where they may have historically been operating because of the very, very long tenures. I mean, utility industry is probably one of the only utilities or only industries, sectors, you're going to run into people that have, you know, 30, 35, 40 years at the same company. I remember early in my career, there was a young operator. He had just gotten his operator's license out at one of the thermal plants up in Minnesota that I was working with. And he sat down in the chair in the control room, and the shift came up behind him and like patted him on the back and said, "Welcome to your last job." This dude was like 20. and he was probably right. Like that was going to be his last job. He was going to retire at, you know, 60 or whatever as a control room operator. And that's what he was going to do for the rest of his life. So how many industries are like that? Not too many.
Not at all. In other words, commitment to the skill level, the commitment, because, you know, we got to get back to pensions sometimes in America. This 401k doesn't work too much, you know. I mean, we got to get back to a good
city of Austin.
Good defined pension, you know. We got to, you know, so that workers who spend life, you know, in their industry, that the industry would take care of them rather than this 401k, which is it's not a retirement plan, it's a savings plan, and a bad one at that. So I'm not saying any more on that because I might get beat up too bad.
No, say a lot about that, because City of Austin's pension planning, you're gonna be driving people towards City of Austin. So no, keep saying that.
Okay. I'll do that.
So Greg, in closing, what's ahead of you? You know, holidays obviously, but what's happening in the next 6 months? Your budget process internally starts around February, March. Distributech is coming up. I assume that you will be there. What else is going on in Greg's agenda in the next 6 months?
It's part of it is on the data side. So we talked a lot about technology. On the data side element of my job, we've implemented, I've kind of used it as a kind of poster child. We've implemented some fairly good operational dashboards for the technology and data function. And I've been, you know, showing that to the other executives at Austin Energy. I think we're going to have some takers in this coming year to bring basically transparency, visibility to other parts of the organization. I mean, it's been, like I was saying, we've had like a complete, it's night and day in terms of our responsiveness and other things like the cybersecurity, just bringing daylight to issues. And so analyzing that data, making it visible, making it available to people, you know, kind of democratizing that within the utility. I think that's going to be a game changer for performance as a utility.
Right. That's great. John, any final thoughts?
Yeah, I think the game changer is for occupations and jobs in America in the future. And as I said in my beginning comments, we have lots of small issues in America, but our biggest issue is the competition with other countries that's emerging. That's our biggest issue in America. So it's significant to me that when I go and look at a lot of the stuff on the most famous platform now, of course, is from China on the on the internet, and it's important for us to get back focused in terms of providing opportunities for America, because the competition with India and the competition with China will be great. And so I think you're right in the center of opportunity structure for the entire world, but making America at the very, very center of data science.
Well, we have 30 opportunities just in my area right now.
So. And I just gave you another one on the wealthy people. So let's get that together and you know, and we'll move from there. I don't want but 55% of it. That's all I want. I'm easy.
Sounds good.
Well,
okay,
Greg, thank you, Greg, for being with us today. I appreciate you as always, and we'll see you around. Hopefully we'll get that monthly call going with Matt and team. And yeah, absolutely.
Sounds good.
Always a pleasure. Thank you. John, take us away.
I heard you're rocking tonight. Gonna hold my baby as tight as I can. You know I'm a mighty, mighty man, 'cause I heard the news. Baby, we're rocking tonight. Well, sweet Lorraine and Sioux City too. Okay, don't you too? Well, they'll be there rocking. Hey, baby, ain't you glad we heard the news? But everybody's rocking tonight.
All right.
All right.
Thank you, Johnny. Thank you, Greg. Hey, happy holidays, everybody.
Have a happy holiday. See you next time.
Everybody.
Bye.
Have a good one.
Take care. Thank you.